Okay, we can get started. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today for our webinar about post-secondary options. I'm Jane Hauser. I am NESCA's Director of Marketing and Outreach, and your presenter today will be Tabitha Monahan, NESCA's Transition Specialist and Counselor. We will have a live Q&A at the end of the presentation. You can either hold your questions till the end and then type them into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, or you can type them into the chat and we will get to those at the end of the presentation. If you have any issues or any technical difficulties throughout the presentation, just let me know throughout the presentation in the chat. And with that, I will turn things over to Tabitha Monahan.
Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. We're going to go over some of the post-secondary options that our young students may consider as they're planning for their next steps after leaving high school. So at NESCA, we take a lot of pride in all of the work we do to support students, families, and school districts in their transition needs. This includes, of course, our neuropsychological evaluations, but within the transition department includes assessment, individual coaching, and that can be career counseling, figuring out those next steps. It can also be a lot of skill building that is helpful for our students who have trouble generalizing and need a little bit more support. So today we're going to try to cover a lot of different items. Overview of the transition planning process, discussing all those different types of post-secondary options that our students may want to consider, talking about how self-determination connects to transition planning and the importance of building those self-determination skills. And of course, any questions you may have. So what is transition planning? So it's what we're going to do after high school, after we leave public education. So it's our course of study. What classes are our students taking in high school? And these are both academic and non-academic classes. What type of instruction do these students learn best with? Do they need work-based learning opportunities, community-based instruction? What does the instruction look like within the classroom to supplement and support the work-based learning and community-based instruction? And of course, there's the related services, and that's where a lot of transition specialists. So in addition to the related services that we commonly think about, such as the counselors or the speech language pathologists and OT and PT, it also includes the transition person. And that is incredibly important to make sure that there is a solid transition piece as part of the student's IEP team. And we need the transition planning to include the career and college planning. And for a lot of our folks, that also means planning for the daily living skills. So in the federal law, it says if needed. In my experience, that is needed for every person. We all need to figure out all the different aspects of life when we get to adulthood and we're trying to become more independent. So it should all begin with goal setting and the student's vision. In Massachusetts, starting at age 14, if not earlier, and this is the IEP period when the student's going to turn 14, the student's vision needs to be primary in the IEP. And that vision should be, and is supposed to be, what guides everything else. So then we're planning on how to achieve those goals and get closer to that vision. We're executing the plan through the IEP, through our community supports. This is where the transition planning form that is part of the IEP team meeting, but not part of the IEP, is incredibly beneficial when we're considering what outside providers and other community stakeholders for your child may benefit. And we need to see how that progress is going. Just like we do for academic goals, like reading comprehension, we need to see how well the students getting towards their vision. And if their visions change, a lot of students, their ideas of what they want for life in 8th grade are very different than what they would like in 12th grade. And then we need to repeat this process. Students usually have at least 4 or 5 years in transition planning process, some up towards turning 22. So we need to make sure we're continually using this cycle. So thinking about transition planning, a lot of it's going to depend on where the student sees themselves after they leave public education. And one of the most common thoughts is college. And college can look differently for a lot of people and can really depend on what their goal for college is. So there's a lot of 2-year colleges. So those are the community and technical colleges, junior colleges. Their community colleges often offer certificates that can help a person reach their employment goal and also reach, kind of explore that process. And then there's the 4-year college that we typically think about, and these can be private or public universities, and they provide that well-rounded education in support of a student and their major, and help you obtain a higher level position for the most part. And so students often think this is the path. We start showing that to students early on, but it can look different for everybody. For example, most 4-year colleges students, whether they have disabilities or not, don't graduate within 4 years. So really helping to make sure your student understands that the perceived idea and concept of the of college doesn't have to be, it can be adjusted for them. And for a lot of our students, the supported college experience is the best way for them to have their college life that they are craving, but also have the success that they deserve. And so there are colleges that are for people and geared towards people with learning differences, such as Landmark College in Vermont, Beacon College in Florida are just 2 of many examples. And then there are a lot of colleges that have programs for people with learning differences within the college. So some local colleges that have that, some private colleges, our dean has the ARC program and Curry has the PAL program. A lot of our local state universities have supports as well, including Bridgewater State University has something called the Excel program. And there's also something in Massachusetts called the Massachusetts Inclusive Concurrent Enrollment Initiative. And this is such a wonderful program for a lot of our students where they can receive the support of their home special education team and also have that college experience. And so different school, not every school district participates, and some school districts are only connected to specific programs. This can be a great opportunity for a lot of our students who need more support and still require the services from their public schools. And so there are some that are Macy participants that also have private pay, such as the Excel program at Bridgewater State University that I mentioned earlier. And then we also have a lot of different opportunities for students who don't necessarily want the college experience and want to focus more on getting a meaningful job. And so there are a lot of different training programs. And so some of the ones that we want to kind of think about are how do we get our students into these training programs and what support do they offer? One of my favorite programs is a federally funded program called Job Corps. There's locations throughout the United States. And I believe there's 4 different locations just in Massachusetts. The offerings at each site vary, and each site has their own focus, but they offer not just your traditional trades like you would see with apprenticeships, but also things like food service and medical assistant or medical coders. And they can last as short as 3 to 6 months to as long as a year plus. And the benefit of Job Corps for a lot of our students is that they understand and will utilize the IEP accommodations or 504 accommodations. And the timeline is not set in stone. So if a student needs more time, then is typical. That's not a problem in Job Corps. They also have a lot of supports, such as vocational counselors to help them get a job afterwards. It's hands-on learning. There's also the opportunity to live in a dorm setting, so you can have some support, minimal support, but some support living on your own. And there is organized recreation opportunities as well, which can be beneficial for a lot of our students. Because it's a federally funded program, there is a lot of no nonsense. So it needs to be for the right student, but is an amazing opportunity to help our students get the training they need. We also should look into trade-specific programs, specifically car mechanics or body shops have a lot of specific training options. You can even get training for a specific brand of vehicle. And there's private trade schools for a slew of different pieces and programs. So, even thinking of something like a beauty parlor into learning trades in the hair or becoming a nail technician. And one thing that we do want to be careful of is a lot of the private schools, making sure we're checking their accreditation. There have been some issues with some of these public schools that we've seen, my apologies, these private for-profit entities in the past. So making sure we're helping our students do the research and have a clear understanding of the success rate for those folks. And for our individuals who are looking for a more traditional trade, going to the unions can be incredibly beneficial. A lot of the unions have the apprenticeship programs, and even better, a lot of these programs are paid, and they'll help you get the licensing. And when we're thinking about these schools, we really need to also be looking at the specialized education and what their methods are to make sure it's a fit with our students' learning style and their pace. The costs vary widely to being quite affordable to being more than you would pay for a traditional degree. And you also have to consider, especially if it's more of a hands-on career, what equipment costs are going to be the student's responsibility. Now, a lot of our students are eligible for adult services once they exit public education. I could probably do a whole day webinar in and of itself talking about the different state agencies and the types of services they provide. And So this is the incredibly short version. You will be receiving these slides after the presentation today. And so these blue links will bring you to their websites to learn more about them. DDS, the Department of Developmental Services, is one of the most known ones when we're thinking about our transition age youth. They provide both services to children and adults, and it's a different application. So even if you have DDS services for your child, you do need to reapply. And so they work with folks with developmental disorders, so we're with intellectual disability, and and autism. And the eligibility and types of services available can vary widely. And one of the things that can be incredibly hard when we're thinking about our students transitioning to the adult world is we go from the entitlement services for under special education and IDEA to eligibility-based services. So these state agencies can agree wholeheartedly with you that you have a need for services, and they can say, yes, this is a type of service we provide, but if there's not funding available, you're out of luck and on a wait list. And this has been an incredibly difficult challenge, especially since the pandemic, for individuals who need services. And so a lot of families are looking to alternative models. Mass Rehab Commission offers, we think of them most for the vocational supports they offer. For transition age youth, it's called PREATS, Pre-Employment Transition Services. And for adults, it's vocational support for all individuals with disabilities. They also, for individuals with physical disabilities, they have a supported living community-based services. We also have the Department of Mental Health. This is for individuals with severe and persistent mental illness. The services they offer are quite different than DDS. Some individuals may be dually eligible, but that is a challenge for individuals to get. And so a lot of times we need to consider which agency will offer the best support for our youth. And for folks who are deaf or hard of hearing, we have the Massachusetts Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind, for people who are blind or low vision. There are also some services through the Department of Public Health, though those are not ones we typically see with our students in our population. And so the process a lot of times for our individuals starts with the school district sending what's called a 688 referral to the state agency. And what that is it's notifying the state agency that an individual will be aging out of public education soon and heading to adult services. And what the law indicates is that if an individual is not going to be able to work 20 hours or more in a competitive environment, they're eligible for a 688 referral. I have the personal belief that it's always better to go on the side of caution and get the 688 referral sent out, because a lot of times when we're working with our young adults, we don't know for sure if they have the ability, once they exit public education, to meet that competitive integrated employment goal. And the 688 referral just lets the state agency know. And it should be sent at least 2 years prior to the expected graduation date. So for individuals who will be obtaining services through the age of 22, we're looking at that age 17 and a half type piece, even if they're going to be there until age 22. For our students who we think are going to be graduating their senior year, we want that sent out the spring of their junior year. It is, again, the law is at minimum 2 years before the expected graduation date. And so unless we're expecting services post 12th, we're looking for it in no later than June of this sophomore year. And so when we start planning and we're thinking about planning, here's the questions that I really want you to ask yourselves. And what's my child's goal for the future? What do they want? What is their awareness of both their strengths and challenges, right? So we have to really balance this and make sure that we are making sure they know what they're great at, but they also know what's harder for them. And we need them to start having that realistic kind of expectation for themselves. It's heartbreaking when you are working with someone who's a senior or in their post 12th grade transition program, thinking that they're fabulous at math. And so it's a relative strength for them. And so they want to go to college and focus on a major where they're focusing on math, but it's a relative strength. So we need to balance them knowing what their actual abilities are with making sure they understand that there is a place for them and they should be proud of the strengths they have. And we just need to start thinking beyond the school system to ensure that they have that community. The least restrictive environment for an adult is in the community. So what are the informal resources that are going to be available to them? Are they connected to a community group? Who are their friends and family that they want to continue to be involved with in their adult life? And what are the formal resources and what are they going to be able to help and facilitate? What is DDS actually going to be able to offer? What is the funding situation for that? Where is your student going to live? If they have a goal of living independently, how are we preparing them for that? Both being able to financially afford a place to live independently, but also to understand the budgeting needs and all of those other pieces that, frankly, I don't think any teenager really thinks about how much goes into living on your own and having your own place because their parents are taking care of it. And so we really need to make sure we're thinking about that and thinking about it early. I also want parents to begin thinking about what happens when they become older, right? So our goal is for our students to become as independent as possible and live their best lives. But we're, as parents, we're still going to be there. We're still going to be their best advocate other than the student themselves. But when we get older and when, we're no longer as capable physically to help our child the way we're used to, what's the plan for that? And it is always better to start that planning when we're in healthy and a good space than it is to try to rush and figure it out after things have already started to go wrong. And so when we're thinking about our students and planning for the future and their adult life, we want to consider the whole person. And when we're thinking about the career of that person, right? And for a lot of our folks, maybe it means working a full-time job in a competitive integrated employment. Maybe it's a person who's going to have a supported employment situation or working part-time. Maybe for some of our folks, their employment is going to be more of a volunteer situation, but there's a place for every single person to engage in their community in the way that is enjoyable and fulfilling for them. So helping our students consider all these different aspects for adult life and for their career, whatever that may be, is important. So I've already talked about making sure they know their skills and their abilities. But also knowing their preferences is so important for a lot of my students who don't know what they want to do yet, and they aren't sure, and it seems overwhelming. The easiest way to break those things down is let's figure out what they don't like. Let's have them try a slew of different things. Work-based learning is fabulous for this. And figure out what they don't like. And that'll help them figure out more of what they do. And every job and every learning experience creates transferable skills. One of the things I encourage a lot of my students to do is to get the entry-level job while they're in high school or their post-12th program. There are certain skills that we build working in a grocery store, working in a local cafe, that will benefit you throughout your lifetime, regardless of the career you pick. When we're thinking about the different things and they're not sure, what was their favorite class? Do they really like history? Was art the best? Did they prefer something where they could move around a lot and it was more hands-on? Was the work-based learning and volunteer opportunities they had in public school the best? How do they like to learn, right? So this is incredibly helpful when we're thinking about the actual section of the type of work and the type of supervisor and situation that would work best for them, right? I've talked about the work-based learning, hands-on, doing it themselves. Do they do better reading and having a reference that they can go back to? Is reading and looking at that reference going to be more overwhelming, and they would do better having someone tell them? And then, of course, the length and cost of training. A lot of the students I work with, they're like, I don't want to go to college. 4 more years of college, I'm done. I've done my schoolwork. I want to get a job and go start living my life. But when we start researching their career and what they want to do, it may require an advanced degree. So not only college, but continuing education after that. So considering those kind of things, and also considering the cost, the rising cost of education, along with everything else, is a consideration. Will they be able to pay that back? Do they already have the savings set aside for that? And so, because when we're thinking about that, I think of the helping fields and nursing. That is a great kind of idea when thinking about it. So we can have in the medical field, we could have a doctor where they've not only gone to college, they've gone to medical school, they've done their residency before they even get to start. Or on the other end, you could have a personal care attendant where maybe your only training is a first aid CPR class, and it's just a natural innate talent and a love for that type of work. Then there are a lot of professions in between. There's the certified nursing assistant, which is a certificate program that's only a few months long, or becoming a registered nurse and getting your bachelor's degree. And so helping students figure those pieces out can really help their life satisfaction and helping them achieve success. And so switching gears a bit is a big piece of helping our students and our children decide what that path is, giving them the self-determination skills. And self-determination is another area that I could probably do a webinar on and speak all day. So I'll try to keep this to a minimum so we have time for questions. And so that's the autonomy, the choice making. Are they picking the meals that they want to do? Are they picking out their clothes? Are they accessing community or training programs? Self-regulation, that's that cognitive flexibility, problem solving, right? Are they able to figure out ideas of how to get from A to B? Are they able to kind of think outside the box when there is a situation that they weren't expecting? and of course, goal setting. And so that's not just creating the realistic goal, but also coming up with these steps to achieve it. And the last two is believing in yourself and knowing yourself, right? Do you believe that you have the capability of using your skills and getting what you want? And self-realization, that self-awareness. Do you know your strengths? Do you know your challenges? Do you know how to offset those challenges so you can still achieve what you would like to? And do you know yourself? And who you are and what your disability is and why it impacts you and what accommodations are helpful for you. What you probably can't see in the background is there's a poster on the window behind me, and it says disability is not a bad word. And so for a lot of our students, they have internalized stigma about their disability or their diagnoses. So helping them realize, right, that self-realization that this comes with strengths and challenges, and it's not a bad thing. It's just how you integrate into society, because disability isn't something that's wrong with the person themselves. It's a difficulty within our society. And so if there's an accommodation that we can use, it's no longer something that's getting in the way. And with this, it's building the self-determination and agency. We've talked about this a lot already today. And so it's worth reinforcing. Do they know what they like? Do they have their preferences? Are they able to make a choice? And so for our students who have a hard time making choices, maybe we're starting with a binary choice. Would you prefer ice cream or a cookie? Would you prefer to write a paper on a topic or give an oral presentation? Do they know and understand why some things are harder for them? One of the things that I work with a lot of my coaching clients on is a lot of my clients have a scattering of strengths and challenges. And a common one is their processing speed is lower than their verbal abilities. And helping them understand that and learn that what that means can, it's amazing to see kind of the light bulb moment where they're like, oh, this is why this is hard. And I just need to make sure, I'm taking these steps and giving myself enough time and breaking it down smaller, and I'll get this and I can understand this. Can be life-changing for a lot of our students. So the more we can help them get to that point earlier in their life, the more confident they will be in themselves. And for goal setting, a lot of my students have their big goal plan, what they want their life to be like in their 30s and 40s when they've done all their education and they've gotten their career. But having a goal that they're able to accomplish in a month is not something they've really done. So helping them with a small short-term goal and helping them, right, that scaffolding support, creating the plan to achieve those goals. And one of the most important things, and this is where we get into that cognitive flexibility and problem solving, is what do they do about their goal when something doesn't work right, when something doesn't go as planned or takes longer than expected. And the other piece with all of this, and it's so essential when we're helping a person understand their strengths, but also the things that are hard for them, we need to make sure that we're doing this in a mindful way so they still believe in themselves. They've spent years struggling with different aspects of school or social pieces or their emotional well-being. And so as we're getting them to understand themselves, we need to make sure that they know they can do it, right? We're helping them learn about themselves so they can come up with something that they love. And so how do we get this done, right? And it can be incredibly challenging during the school year to add all of this in on top of making sure they're getting as close to grade level or above grade level as possible, that they're meeting the standardized expectations, that they're meeting their class requirements. Going back to that course of study that I spoke about, are we, as part of their course of study, are we excusing them from too many things that are actually going to impact their ability to succeed later, right? So our students who may be in a fully inclusive or partially inclusive setting, they're often losing a lot of their academic flexibility to have those needed classes. So are they getting the same guidance counseling seminars as fully included general education peers? Are they, are they losing their opportunity to have a foreign language, which is often a college requirement to take foreign language in a college? So not getting that experience in high school sets them up to have a far more challenging time in their future learning environments. And so one of the things that we came up with at NESCA is, because frankly, there's only so many hours in the day, is our transition seminars to really help them figure out those pieces. And so we have 2 different seminars depending on the student's goals. And it really focuses on helping them come up with that post-secondary vision in all aspects of adult life. So we're not just talking about, here's what I'm going to do for work, here's what I'm going to do for school, but all of those pieces that make for a complete full life. And then goal setting. This is something that I believe we all need to practice constantly all throughout our life in adulthood. So helping with that and helping them build, right, starting to get that supported way to build awareness of their strengths and weaknesses, and really focus on that through a self-determination approach so that they can be the causal agent in their lives. They're the one making the action steps. And helping them understand the IEP process and how to be an active participant. The student is the most important member of the IEP team. It is their life. So how to help them understand all of these pieces of the IEP process that can be so confusing to all the adults in the room. How do we help the students feel comfortable being that active participant? And also all these other pieces that I've talked about, the job exploration and readiness skills, practicing it so they feel comfortable. Role playing, some people love it, some people hate it, but practicing interview skills, learning how to kind of adjust those pieces. And the program also includes, using both the tech pieces and the non-tech pieces. We live in a very technological world, and a lot of our students don't have many opportunities because of accommodations to really fulfill and learn kind of comfort in using non-tech and our more traditional skill building options. So the first one that we offer is for post-secondary options and career exploration. This is great for students who are planning to attend a non-traditional college or training program. So, maybe a supported college experience, or they're going to they're thinking about a trade school. If they're planning, if the plan is more of utilizing adult services right after exiting public education. And for the folks and the students who aren't sure yet, they just haven't had the opportunity to decide what path makes the most sense to them. And for both of our programs, it will be meeting Mondays and Wednesdays for 2 hours. And we have it set up so it's hopefully after ESY for any of our students who may be participating in ESY as well. Our second track is for that college exploration student. So this is great for students who are considering going directly to a 2-year or 4-year after they leave public education. So this is also for students who will probably graduate in 12th grade, but also students who will continue with public education after 12th grade. But the end goal is that 2-year or 4-year college experience. And thank you all. I know it can be rough to hear someone speak for 40 minutes straight, but that's where we are for today. And I'd like to open it for any questions.
So we do have one so far, interested in MAICEI, but being told the child at vocational school and school not the town is supportive. Do they have to fail MCAS to qualify? Can we access without town or school support?
So that's a fabulous question. And it becomes incredibly difficult. So the vocational schools are incredibly challenging for our students who need transition services because they typically don't have their own transition programs post 12th. And so it can involve returning to your public school district. I have not heard of a vocational school that is a MAICEI participant. Don't hold me to that. I don't know every vocational school's set up. But a lot of times the vocational schools, it is more challenging to get these services. So I would reach out to your public school to see what they offer. So for the MAICEI program specifically, you still have to be connected to public education. However, there are a lot of programs where you can get that college support outside of the MAICEI program. So for example, the programs I mentioned in Massachusetts, Dean, Curry, I believe there's one still at Leslie. These are all private schools and they're private pay for those programs. Bridgewater State University has their Excel program is a MAICEI program for districts, but they also have that private funding option. So if you're close to Bridgewater, it's worth checking out and also kind of just seeing what that model is and seeing if it would be great or a good fit for your student. A lot of colleges, especially the community colleges, have a lot of supportive programming built in. So any college you're looking at, it's super important to go to the Disability Services or Student Service Center to see what those accommodations are. One thing that I did not mention before is the laws for college are different than the laws for public education. And so you're no longer under IDEA, you're under the American with Disabilities Act, the ADA, and a vocational law from the 70s, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And that's where you might hear the word 504 plan. But even 504 plans in high school are different than the ones in college. And there's no modifications in college for the college curriculum. You can get typically extended times allowed, note-taking might be allowed, but each college is going to do that, even note-taking differently. It may not be a scribe, it may be just getting a copy of the professor's notes or a copy of another student's notes. So it's incredibly important when your student is getting ready and considering college, you look into all of those pieces. There are also a lot of programs that have been popping up that support students with the college experience, not that aren't connected to the college. So in addition to NESCA's executive function coaching and college readiness skills that we offer as part of our transition pieces, separate from that summer program I just talked to you about, there are many different companies that help support that. One in the Boston area that helps a lot of students in person when you live and attend a college in the Boston area is Focus Collegiate. There are some in the Worcester area as well. And there's also a lot of, kind of remote options that are popping up. So if there's a school that seems like there'd be a really good fit for your student, but you think your student's going to need just a little bit more, that's when it might be worth it to consider other options. And I hope that answered your question.
So we have a follow-up question as well, looking really towards after the academic support that Macy offers. Regular accommodations won't be enough, and then looking for a culinary program specifically.
So depending on what culinary needs, Job Corps might be something worth looking into. I know the Grafton location has several culinary type pieces. It's also worth kind of thinking about whether or not they need further education in that. Are they able to kind of work and learn in the kitchen hands-on through internships within the school, or getting a job probably more at a local small business type restaurant versus a chain. And so if regular accommodations won't be enough, this is where we really kind of need to have that thoughtful, hard conversation and planning is, do they have the academic skills to make it in college? And if it's a matter of keeping up with a full-time college course load, maybe they're just taking a longer path and taking 1 or 2 classes per semester. Or is that a piece where they just need more executive function help, helping to break it down, come up with systems, navigate and work on their self-advocacy skills. Another important thing when we're thinking about college is even if they're approved for accommodations, it's up to the student to let the professor know. And professors don't necessarily think about the accommodation, so you're probably going to have to mention it more than once in the semester. And some students, especially if they get an accommodation for a quiet testing space or more time, they may have to have the added responsibility of scheduling that time with the student services. And so when we're thinking about a student who we're pretty confident that accommodations in college won't be enough, I think we need to think about the purpose of college and what skills we're really looking to build. So this would be a great opportunity to really make sure a thorough transition assessment has been done by the school district or privately to figure out what college skills are lacking and get goals and objectives into the IEP sooner rather than later to help them build those skills.
Great, and we'll give it just another minute to see if there's any other questions here. It looks like that may be it. Well, we thank you so much for participating today, and we will follow. Sorry. How would you recommend rising high school freshmen start the process?
Oh, I love that so much. So one of the great things is help them understand their accommodations. in their IEP, help them prepare for their team meeting. Have them feel comfortable, do they feel comfortable talking off the cuff to share their vision and their concerns? If not, help them write a script, so to speak, whether it's, a Google slide of what they've accomplished and what they want to work on, whether it's some flashcards. There are a lot of really great and creative ways. It's one of my favorite parts of working with students is helping them prepare for their IEP meeting. It is my goal for all of my students that before they exit public education, they're fully running the meeting, not the school district, not the parents, that they feel confident enough to take full control. And I love that you're on here with a rising freshman. I love seeing people get started on this in middle school. So starting those conversations early, which it sounds like you're probably doing, is great. Helping them understand what they're working on, what are the goals in their IEP and why. Ooh, who can help the parent?
Yes.
All right. So there are several options, especially depending on the school district and where you live. We work with a lot of families that have advocates. At NESCA, we do a lot of transition consultation as well. So one of the things I tend to work with a lot with parents directly is helping them kind of think about all the assessments that have been done through like the 3-year evals and when they're going through these transitions to figure out kind of what they say and what our goals were. And I've participated in many, and so has all of my colleagues here at NESCA, in many team meetings through a number of years. And it is absolutely overwhelming. I do this all day, every day. And so, it's easy for me to be like, oh yeah, we're just going to do this and this. And oh, your student has this experience. Well, here's where we want to go. And for parents, hearing all of this information, which this will be on our Facebook page, and Jane it'll be on our website too. Yes, so we can refer back to this, right? So if you're not getting everything today, definitely check out our Facebook page or in our website to look back. But setting out just a one-time consultation to kind of get the lay of the land, having an advocate who specializes with transition-aged youth can be incredibly helpful. If you don't already have an advocate, I believe we have a referral page on our website. And anybody that's on that page are folks that our previous clients have recommended and had good experiences with. It's also, okay to, let's call a check-in meeting with the IEP team and not just wait for the annual. If there's a concern popping up, or if you're not sure we're making your students making the progress they need, or something's changed wildly, definitely still do, call the team meeting, see what it's about.
And then just another follow-up from a parent or a guardian caregiver about a child student who has refused to participate in team meetings. Any guidance or any insight that you can offer would be great.
So I think, team meetings are overwhelming for everybody, for the parents, maybe less so for the advocates, but I don't want to put words in their mouth. And even the school team members, even the teachers that are in the meeting and related service providers, it can be pretty overwhelming to have that large group of people. So it's completely understandable that a student would be like, I'm staying away from that. I don't like it. This is overwhelming. And so maybe, this is where a lot of times, right, that pre-planning comes in. So even if a student isn't comfortable going to a meeting, making sure we're still doing that piece. What do they want? What is important for them? And so having both a pre and post meeting. So that can be just the parents. Maybe it's with their academic support teacher or liaison. Or maybe instead of having them come to the annual big team meeting, have them come to a smaller progress meeting where it's not every single team member, but just, small group. There's a great kind of example, story about participating in team meetings that Kelly Challen, our director of transition, shares a lot in her presentations about transition planning, where, comparing IEP meetings to a birthday party, where the student hears about the IEP meeting or their birthday party for years and years and years, and is never invited to go. And they're like, okay, so I guess it doesn't matter. This isn't important for me to be there. And then bam, magically, they're about to turn 14, or they just turned 14, and they're expected to not only they're just magically invited to their party, but not only are they invited to this party, but they're expected to be a huge active participant, when for the previous, kindergarten through 8th grade, have never been asked to participate, don't know anything about it, what it's about. So, for a student who is in middle school or in high school and they're being asked to attend their team meeting and they're like, no, respect that. Don't force them to go. That's just gonna, cause more animosity and stress for the student, which is not the goal there. But start working with them on those pre-planning pieces. And do they know their accommodations? Do they know their goals and why? Are they comfortable with the fact that they're receiving extra support? And have it break it down into that small piece, whether it's just the parents, whether it's the parents and the academic support teacher, whether it's just the academic support teacher.
Thank you, Tabitha. Any other questions before we wrap up?
Well, thank you all for attending today, and for our folks watching on the website and Facebook. Thank you for checking this out. I love getting to help the community understand this process a bit more. And if you have any other questions or would like to learn any more about how we can support you and your child in this transition period in their lives, feel free to reach out to me or our desk at NESCA, and they can help figure out what may be the best support option for you and your family.
Great. Thanks so much, Tabitha, and thank you everyone for participating and joining us today. Take care.